Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Heather Jagman, ILA President and Coordinator of Research, Instruction, and Academic Engagement at DePaul University Library. We appreciate your willingness to try something new with us as we do things a little differently this year, with a focus on preparing library advocates to build relationships with their legislators. We hope today's overview of ILA's Ready, Set, Advocate Toolkit helps you to feel ready to make an appointment to visit your legislators' offices, invite your legislators to the library, or even plan a joint event with neighboring libraries. ILA has 3 legislative priorities this year. The first priority is statewide access to online resources. Under this proposal, selected resources will be available without charge to the 12 million Illinois residents currently served by public libraries and to the more than 1 million residents who currently do not receive public library service. Secretary of State Alexi Janulius has indicated that he supports this proposal. As someone who grew up in an area that was previously unserved, I am so excited about this. The second priority is to amend the Local Records Act to streamline disposal of records. This proposal would allow the records management section of the Illinois State Archives to set a general schedule for public libraries that would allow for the automatic permanent destruction of some records after a set period of time. This change would result in a significant time and money savings on behalf of public libraries, as well as a clearer understanding of record management standards for the state of Illinois. The third priority is flexibility in the use of funds for public library districts. This proposal would increase flexibility in the tax levied for the establishment, maintenance, and support of a district library. Flexibility in how district boards may apply the funds from the levy will enable libraries to maintain programs, services, hours, and collections without asking for any additional support from the taxpayers or the state. I'd like to introduce my co-presenters from the ILA Advocacy Committee. Nanette Donahue is the co-chair of the committee and the Collections and Technical Services Manager at the Champaign Public Library. Sarah Murray is a member of the committee and Executive Director of the Algonquin Area Public Library District. I'd also like to thank our team at ILA headquarters for their support of this event. Next slide. Oh, yes, at the heart of it, advocacy simply means to actively support a cause, and libraries are our cause. Our goal today is for all library staff, trustees, friends, and supporters to feel confident advocating for all types of libraries. Ready, Set, Advocate includes extended versions of the 3 training modules included in today's program, as well as the ILA Advocacy Toolkit, which is available on the ILA website. Please do check it out after today's program. There is so much to dig into at your own pace that will help you feel more confident about your ability to advocate for libraries. This step-by-step program is based on best practices developed by the American Library Association, as well as advocacy programs from other state library associations and nonprofit groups. You'll hear more from me towards the end of today's presentation, but for now, I'm going to turn this over to Sarah for the first module, Ready.
Hello. Before we are ready to advocate, we need to know, what is advocacy? Advocacy is taking action, engagement, supporting a cause, defining specific issues or concerns, sharing a positive message, and leading. Advocacy is also research, education, and lobbying that can influence public policy or decision-making. For all of us, advocacy is also helping people find their voice. We can advocate for ourselves, for other groups or people, or for systemic, legal, or policy changes. Advocacy is making connections, building coalitions, and developing support in the community. Advocacy is not selling, marketing, pressuring, or begging. Advocacy is not presenting an idea and letting someone else or making someone else do it. Advocacy is not fighting against something or protesting, and it's not just reaching out to elected officials once a year to ask them to continue to support funding. Advocacy can sometimes seem confusing. On slide 7, there we go. Because when people talk about advocacy, they may be talking about different pieces of what is actually an overall process. Some advocates will focus on local issues, others on statewide or federal issues. Whether it's community engagement, building an advocacy network, or getting the message out, All are part of a continuous sustained process or continuum that involves 4 stages. Stage 1 is laying the groundwork. This happens through community engagement, building relationships, measuring the impact of initiatives, and sharing personal stories. This can be accomplished by joining local organizations, communicating with elected officials and community partners, being present at community events and meetings, and talking about the library so that it is one of the first places people think about when they have a question to ask or a problem to solve. Stage 2 is turning support into action. We can do this by building support networks with decision makers and library users and supporters in our communities, getting the message out about library needs, changes, and initiatives, finding and sharing resources with those who will advocate with and for us, and attending advocacy training like you're doing today. Step 3 is advocating for specific goals. Be aware of local initiatives and community concerns. Pay attention to messages from ILA and your system about state funding, and don't hesitate to reach out to your elected officials to ask for support. And then be sure to share back with them how state funding and grants are making a positive impact in your library. Respond to the ALA emails asking for support for federal funding or highlighting federal legislation by emailing your elected officials and reminding them how their decisions impact the work we do. And finally, be aware of international initiatives. Step 4 is responding to opportunities and threats. Recognize what might present a threat to your funding or how your budget might be impacted by state mandates. Read your ILA Alert e-newsletter to remain aware of legislative challenges highlighted by the Public Policy Committee. Censorship challenges and First Amendment audits are becoming more common, unfortunately, and you should have plans that are shared with and familiar to your staff for responding to those situations. Whether the goal is local support or federal legislation, the components are basically the same. Once you understand these pieces and how they fit together, you will find it easier to be an effective advocate for your library at all levels. That's one of the reasons why involvement at the state level, for instance, can make you a more effective advocate at the local level. So, why do we need library advocacy? Library advocates need to remind leaders that libraries are vital. All too often, people forget about their local libraries or don't realize how libraries are changing their spaces and services to adapt to new community needs and interests. Libraries meet their community's needs by quickly developing and implementing programs and services to assist community members in need, including students, seniors, parents, and small business owners. This can be seen through our offerings of everything from a space for studying, meeting, or playing, to job search resources, to notary services, to a library of things. Because we offer services to everyone in one way or another, we are uniquely situated to narrow the information literacy divide and provide equitable access to all. Anyone can do advocacy work. So why are you an important advocate? You know what your community needs by connecting with people every day. You know what your library can do right now, and you're already doing so much. Celebrate it and tell people what you're doing. Both you and your library exist within a larger community organization. Whether you or your staff are part of the Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, a parent-teacher organization at a local school, or a faith community, you already have connections to people in your community. And you know how your library can fit within that larger community or organization right now. Whether it be a partnership to bring in a presenter, a story time in the park, or something else, you are likely already positioning yourself to be an advocate. To be an effective advocate, you also need to know your library. Does your library have a mission statement? Is your library's strategic plan up to date? Do you know where to find it and what the goals are? Are you subscribed to library system and association newsletters such as ALA and its divisions, ILA, the Illinois State Library, Rails, and Illinois Heartland? Do you know when your library board meets? Are there documents or reports you can access before or after the meetings to learn what the library is doing and what decisions are being made? Do you know where to get the basic data that explains who's using your library? And do you know what services your library offers? Even if you choose just 2 or 3 services that may surprise people, such as notary, library of things, early literacy programming, or license plate sticker renewal, you can get people's attention and encourage them to learn more. When looking at your community, here are some of the critical questions you need to ask. Who are the community leaders? Who are your movers and shakers? Who are the people who everyone recognizes in town? How do you keep track of what's happening in your area? Subscribe to email lists or newsletters, such as those from the city, school district, park district, chamber of commerce, and others. Does the community have service organizations? What are the anchor businesses in your area or those that get involved in community activities? Do you know the school curriculum or someone who can tell you about it? How would you describe your community? Who can help you fill in that description? What issues and events are key in your community? It may be that food insecurity or lack of transportation cause challenges, or everyone may rally around the high school football team on Friday nights. What are the things that give cause for concern or celebration in your community? And as important as understanding your community, you need to be actively engaged with your community. Consider your role at the library, whether you are a director, trustee, or other valued staff member. Are you engaged in your community outside of the library? Are you serving in leadership roles in your community? Do you attend local meetings, events, ribbon cuttings, festivals, and programs? Do you invite other organizations and businesses to partner with your library to promote themselves, either by sponsoring programs, setting up a table in the library, or working together in the community? Do you have a seat at the community table? Don't miss your opportunity to have your voice heard. Is your library serving as a vehicle for your community? You can connect people with services, information, and other people. We've reviewed a lot here. I know it was a lot. It may feel like there's so much information to gather and know and remember to be ready to advocate. But as noted earlier, this is a continuum of learning and sharing the message. Knowledge and understanding of your library and engagement with the community are the foundations of successful advocacy. But you are ready to be an important advocate because you are the person who already knows or can find out what your community needs. You know what your library can do right now to help meet those community needs. You are already connected with people who need to hear your message, whether they are library users or not. And you know that your library changes and improves people's lives, and that is a story worth telling. And now that you are ready, it is time to get set with Nanette.
All right. So whether you're communicating with the public, with media, with library users, with community leaders, or with elected officials, it's important to communicate a clear, consistent, and concise message. You want your message to be clear so your audience understands the point you're making. So you avoid library jargon, avoid buzzwords when you're sharing your message. You want to be consistent so everyone you communicate is hearing the same message. This doesn't mean that you don't tailor that message to a specific audience. You just want the heart of your message to be consistent. And you need to be concise so people don't tune you out. If you work in a library, if you serve on a library board, what is your library all about? How is your library making a difference in your community and in people's lives? If you're a library user or a library supporter, what makes the library important to you? So let's consider the big picture here. Your message should combine the big picture with the specifics within your community. Now, some of these big picture messages that I'm going to share are common across different types of libraries and are the focus of national and statewide public awareness campaigns. You may have heard some of these or used them in your library. Things like libraries transform lives or libraries transform communities. We've used those at Champaign a couple of times now. Libraries are essential to lifelong learning. Libraries are a smart investment and an incredible value for your tax dollars. I'm sure some of your libraries probably have those little return on investment calculators on your checkout receipts that show people how much money they save by using the library rather than buying all those materials they've checked out. Some of the messaging that we saw during the pandemic includes things like libraries are first responders for those needing information and assistance. Libraries are vital to a robust recovery. And then libraries are bigger than a building. Now, ILA used this very effectively during the stay-at-home orders as a means of sharing the creative ways that libraries were continuing to serve their communities when the physical buildings were closed. So then within these broad messages, you need to think about your local library message. Some questions that you may want to consider as you craft your message include, what is unique and special about your library? What are your local library's issues? How is the library making a difference in your community? Your message is also important if you're looking to achieve specific goals of service improvement. And a lot of our advocacy tends to revolve around some of these questions. Things like, are you looking to add services or hours? Are you looking to expand or to renovate your building? How will these plans make a difference in the community and in people's lives? If you're a library user, how will these plans make a difference to you? All of these messages that you're going to give need to be carefully crafted, concise, and widely shared so community members and community leaders understand your library's value and goals. As all good communicators understand, it is the specific story backed by data that drives home the point. It's the specific stories that dramatically illustrate what statistics only suggest. Data has always been and will continue to be important in advocating for your library. Statistics can serve as a powerful support for your stories, and most people have no idea just how much the library is used. The fact that your library circulates 1 million items each year, or that thousands of children attend library story hours, is as important as ever. In most communities, the library is the most widely used public service and provides great monetary value for the tax support it receives. I had mentioned those tax calculators that show up on checkout receipts that let users know how much money they're saving by using the library. That can be a really powerful way to communicate that message about the value of libraries to people who are using them. But that combination of data and the real stories you've now collected can be a really powerful advocacy tool. Whether you're talking with community members, community leaders, or state and local officials, stories based on real people's experiences provide the emotional connection that numbers alone cannot. Knowing that 2,000 children participated in the library summer reading program is valuable information. That's great, it's amazing. But knowing that Jordan, a 5-year-old with reading problems, ended up becoming an avid reader over the course of the summer and is now doing just great at school this fall makes a much more dramatic point. Kids who read succeed. Knowing that Taylor's homebound elderly mother finds her library books a lifesaver during months of isolation brings dry circulation statistics to life much more than any chart or graph. Stories can be used in presentations to local community groups to illustrate talking points and to support local, state, and even federal initiatives. The story you share can have as great an impact on a senator in Washington, D.C. as it does on your next door neighbor. With the messages you've developed and the stories you can now tell, you're ready to put your advocacy plan into action. One thing to remember is that the best advocates for change are those people who can tell a story that moves people to action, and you are the one who knows these stories best. But capturing these stories is not always easy. For the most part, library staff may not be aware of the true impact of the services they provide. Whether they're children, students, parents, business people, or the elderly, libraries have a profound impact on the lives of community members. So let's talk about the components of a compelling library story and look at an example. So you want to start out with a problem, then a library intervention. How did the library help solve the problem? You always want to have a happy ending, at least one factor statistic, make the story about a real person or a real group of people, and then include a phrase that pays to wrap it up. So here is a real life success story from Illinois State University's Milner Library using that template. Illinois State University students were not acquiring or were delaying purchase of textbooks and required course materials. Textbooks are incredibly expensive these days. And when you're a college student and you're dealing with a lot of financial stress, something has to give. And it turns out that what was starting to give was purchasing textbooks. So Milner Library saw this problem, and they developed a plan to address the problem by purchasing electronic versions of the textbooks that could be used across campus. This investment in students gave over 2,000 students the opportunity to use the electronic resources. In addition to saving money, students and faculty reported benefits from the program. I mean, imagine how much stress would be lifted if you knew you did not have to spend $1,500 on your required textbooks for coursework. That's incredible for young people. Increased accessibility of course materials. Imagine that you're trying to take a college course and you don't have the textbook or the course materials. That's also very stressful. And increased ease of using materials. So the phrase that pays here, Milner Library is committed to supporting students and helping them succeed. Now, the good news is that there are hundreds and hundreds of these real stories out there. The trick is to get libraries to share those stories, library users to share those stories with you. So how can you make that happen? Libraries can make this easier in a number of ways. So you want to make it a practice to do the following. Have a place for library patrons to write, text, or email their library experience. Learn how to capture stories yourself. If somebody, starts sharing an exciting story with you about how the library helped them or how the library changed their life or improved their life, ask them if you can write that down. Ask them if you can share it with others. You can also ask library users to share or take photos at programs, at the building, enjoying reading a book or at a park, any of those sorts of things. And then post stories and photos on social media with people's permission, of course. This has worked extraordinarily well here at Champaign. We often find that posting one library story on our social media brings out several other library stories in the comments. And it's not only a feel-good moment for library staff. We don't always hear these things. I work in collections and technical services. I don't hear from the public a lot. But when you're looking at the comments on a Facebook post and people are like, I love the library collection, that makes you feel good. It's a great feel-good moment for library staff. It also provides excellent fodder for your advocacy work. So with a little practice, your users will appreciate the opportunity to talk about the ways in which the library is impacting their lives. One thing we should always keep in mind is that people who love the library really love the library and are generally happy to share their stories. And then you'll have a growing array of stories that you can use to dramatically illustrate the real impact your library has on people. So ILA and the Reaching Illinois Across Illinois Library System and the Illinois Heartland Library System all have web pages where you can share library stories and see what stories other libraries have collected. ILA and the American Library Association always need stories that can show elected officials at the state and federal level how libraries are impacting people's lives. Many millions of dollars in local, state, and federal support have been secured because of the stories that you can tell. And remember, the best advocates for change are the people who can tell a story that moves others to action. And you are the one who knows these stories best. So you've collected your stories, you've added your statistics and data, you've prepared that clear, consistent, and concise message. So now you need a plan for sharing that message. In developing your plan, some of the things you'll need to think about are, first of all, setting your goals and your key issues. What issues are you advocating for? What's your message? Let's say that one of your key issues is improving childhood literacy in your community. Who is the audience you're advocating to? Remember that the gist of your message should stay the same, but you can tailor the specifics to your audience. So you'd present this message differently if you're talking to a daycare teacher than you would if you're talking to a service group for retirees. The daycare teacher is probably familiar with the impact of early childhood literacy on success later in life. The retirees may not be. Then you'll develop your talking points. So, for example, the library is committed to partnering with families, schools, and daycares and other organizations in our community to provide engaging early literacy activities for babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. Studies have demonstrated that early literacy prepares children for lifelong success, and we want to reach children and families where they are, not only at story time in the library, but at community events in local parks and at daycares. We want to raise a community of readers. Come up with some ways to communicate your message. Newsletters and social media, always an easy way to kind of blast your message out to lots of people. Consider, though, targeted emails. Consider press releases to local media. Consider giving presentations to local groups or organizations. And one-on-one conversations are incredibly powerful. They are a good way to have that conversation and to get people on board with what the library is doing and get people excited. Chances are, if you get somebody excited about something that you're doing at the library, they're going to share it with somebody else. And that helps really build that network of advocates for the library and what they're doing. So who is going to deliver this message? One thing we commonly fall into in the advocacy world is thinking that advocacy is the director's job or an administrator's job or a trustee's job, rather than something that everyone involved in the library can and should participate in. Involve staff at all levels in your advocacy efforts, because everyone can be an effective advocate with a little bit of training. In this scenario, you should consider sending a children's librarian to deliver the message about early childhood literacy to that service group or to those daycare teachers. They're going to have some firsthand information about what the library is doing and the actual impact that it is having on children that maybe somebody who is the library director might not have directly. Include everybody in advocacy. This is not just a job for the people at the top of the organizational chart. It's something that everybody can do. You tell people you work at the library and they want to talk to you about the library. And it doesn't matter if you're a shelver or if you're the library director, they want to talk to you about the library. So have those people ready to talk about the library, to share that message. And then finally, build your network. Think about who your key advocates are to help you with your messaging. In our scenario, it might be parents groups, it might be daycare teachers, local hospitals, school administrators. Anyone with an interest in the lifelong success of the children in your community can be invested in this issue. Advocacy planning should be incorporated into the library's overall planning process. If you're doing strategic planning or if you have a strategic plan, consider how you can use that as the basis for some of your local advocacy work. Remember that a plan should always be fluid and it should be examined regularly and updated as circumstances change or as you evaluate the impact of specific activities. Let's talk really quickly about a personal advocacy plan. Within the broader context of your library-wide plan, each of us needs to think about our personal advocacy goals. No matter what role we play in the library, advocacy is a great opportunity to display our leadership skills while advancing the goals of your library and community. And for the many libraries that are one-person operations, your library plan is your personal advocacy plan. So set some goals for yourself. Is it your goal to learn how to share the library message, or is it to find those stories that demonstrate the library's impact on people's lives? Is your goal to help build better relationships with the community groups that you're part of, or to learn more about how to be part of the advocacy team? Think about it. How do you see yourself as a more effective advocate? And now I'm going to turn it over to Heather to prepare you to advocate.
Thanks, Nanette. Illinois librarians, trustees, staff, friends, community members, all of us are at the heart of advocacy. Successful advocacy grows from building relationships, strong messaging, solid action plans, and community support. Library advocacy should be a part of all libraries. And so here are 5 key steps that all types of libraries can do with great success. Number 1, promote your library, sharing your message. Promote the programs, services, messages, tools of your library throughout your community, campus, company, and school. And if you don't have one, create a newsletter, an e-blast, and explore other tools that will reach all of your library users. If you're in a school or academic library, make sure parents and faculty are on your email lists and social media. Tell your library story, share your library data, be transparent with everything you do, and be transparent with the difference your library is making. Sometimes we live in library land and we take things for granted. We think everyone knows all the amazing things libraries have on offer. I definitely have done this. I took my parents to their public library a few weeks ago. They hadn't been since it was renovated, and they walked around and said things like, there's photo scanners, there's a recording studio. And I thought, oh, they should know this. And so I take full responsibility for that. I think their public library does a great job promoting these things, but it's just stuff that I know, and I think my parents know because by default, they should know these things, but they don't. And then also, of course, practice promoting libraries in general. I was recently taking a Lyft and the driver asked me why I was visiting town. And when I shared I was in town for a library conference, we got into a great conversation about reading and community. Have a few fast facts in your back pocket. Like there's more libraries than McDonald's, and people don't realize that, and that more people visit their libraries every year than attend NFL, NHL, NBA, NASCAR, and movie theaters combined. So just those kind of things that really get people's attention and gives you something to talk about. Number 2, network. For me at DePaul, that means getting to know the administration, faculty, and staff, and make sure your library message is reaching them. You can come right out and ask, have you had a chance to look at that new theater database? I'm so excited about the new streaming collection. If you're at a public library, this means getting to know your community leaders and business owners, visiting with the Rotary, Chamber, and other groups. And of course, network with other libraries. All of us should be talking to each other. Visit with other libraries in your area. 3, be social. Attend your community, campus, company, and school functions. Be prepared to talk about your library. So if someone asks, what's going on in the library? Read any good books lately, just to have something in the back of your head to mention. Mention an audiobook you streamed on a family road trip. Just have something small that you can always just pull out and share with people when you're asked a question like that. You don't have to start really big. Just have something fun to talk about. Make the library a destination. Make your library an attractive, powerful, and fun place to visit, not only in its physical space, but virtual space as well. Know your elected officials. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a few more slides, but reach out to them on a regular basis. Invite them to a program or offer them a tour so they can see what's new. This can be way less intimidating than going to their office and feeling like you have a specific ask. And then 6, professional involvement. Thank you all for being here today. Get involved in your state and national associations in your library system. If you aren't already ILA members, we'd love to have you join us. And then know what is happening on a local, state, and national level with advocacy and how you can get involved. Next slide. So just to recap, library advocacy is for all types of libraries. Each individual library, whether public, academic, school, or special, serves a unique community. So don't be afraid to tailor your approach to fit your situation. Sorry, I just realized my video was off. So hello, everyone. So building your advocacy network, whether you're a director, manager, frontline, backroom, full-time, part-time, or volunteers, the people who work in libraries can be your most effective advocates. Effective staff and volunteer advocates understand their library and their community, know the mission of the library and its goals, know the services the library is offering, know what is happening in the library and in other departments, get engaged when they're offered advocacy training and opportunities, understand and can communicate the library's issues and message, and understand the difference between advocacy and lobbying. Frontline staff are key advocates. Frontline workers are those who directly interact with library users. In libraries, frontline workers include the circulation desk staff, greeters, reference librarians, children's and teens librarians, program planners, outreach staff, and more. While the library director and department heads play critical roles in library advocacy, it's frontline workers who see library users every day and interact with them on a much more personal level. It is so important that frontline staff feel empowered and have the support they need to become successful and confident library advocates. Frontline employees are visible in the library and visible in the community. Maybe they live in the community where they work. They use the local grocery stores, attend the local churches, their children are in local schools, and they interact with their neighbors who are more than likely to be local library card holders. They're often lifelong residents and know their community from the ground up. If you are a frontline staff member, you have an important role to play in advocating for your library. You should not only be aware of what is happening in your library, you should be talking about why your library is so important in the community. So how do you become a more effective frontline advocate? Understand your library, know the mission of your library, know what the services are and what is happening at all times. That way, when someone randomly asks you what's new at the library, you can have something to say. It doesn't even have to be that new. It's just something that you are genuinely happy your library is doing. Familiarize yourself with what is happening in other departments of the library. Maybe attend some of the library programs. Ask if you can assist with programs or at outreach events. Make sure you read the library's e-news, website, and internal messages and stay engaged. Flip through your library's newsletter to see what's coming up. Think about how you can be a voice for your library. See if you can take some training to help you learn how to be a library advocate. Let your supervisor know that you want to help promote what is happening in your library and you want to be an advocate for the library. And include library messages and updates in all virtual and in-person programs. It's an easy way to cross-promote. For example, the ILA New Network is coming up next after this program, and it's about how to start a seed library. And next week, there's one about how to handle the upcoming sun and solar eclipses excitement that is going to happen next year. And then on March 6th, there's going to be a webinar about academic library spaces for promoting wellness. Next slide. So remember, you are not alone in this. Let your community members, library trustees, and library friends take action with you. Here are some of the groups that can be part of your support and advocacy network. Teachers, faculty, parent groups, students. During times of book challenges, students have been some of our most powerful advocates. Service organizations, community leaders, and Chamber of Commerce members. To define your community, think about it. Each individual library, whether public, academic, school, or special, serves a unique community. And the more you can engage with that community, the more you'll be able to connect. So you can share your library's message and stories in informal and formal ways. Talking to people in person, obviously, but also through mailings and newsletters, through local media, through social media, and at the front desk. You can engage your community with open forums. You can invite them to coffees to talk about library programs, ideas, and issues. At DePaul, we have a faculty library review board where we invite them in once a quarter, tell them what's new in the library. We have formal presentations with stories and data, and then also we hear from them to see what they're interested in seeing at the library. The trustees' advocacy role is broad and overarching. It includes raising the library's profile among decision makers and community stakeholders, showing how the library supports community priorities, supporting specific library and program needs, and keeping the library and its work visible in the community. Successful advocacy grows out of broad knowledge about the library mission, goals, and programs, combined with a deep passion for the library as an essential anchor institution and as a champion of equity, inclusion, and democracy. Examples of ways trustees carry out their advocacy role include being confident and knowing the mission and vision of the library they are serving, working with library leadership to understand key library issues and concerns, knowing what their library is doing and planning, attending community and library functions, being strong voices for the library all the time, and embracing library advocacy as a key duty in their trustee role. And attending Trustee Day at ILA is a great way for trustees to feel more involved and confident about their role. Do your elected officials know you, and do they know your library? While your federal and state legislators are very important people in the legislative process, it is your local officials who will help you build the foundation you need to cement your library's mission and importance in your community. So know who they are and what they're doing. Don't assume they have a library card and are library users. Share your library message and stories with them, send them mailings, and invite them to sign up for the library's e-news, attend the ILA legislative meetups, invite them to your library for a tour or to host an informational coffee, visit their office and get to know their key staff members, attend their events, and get together with neighboring libraries and host a legislative meetup. So I know this sounds like a lot to take on, but you don't have to do it all at once. The Advocacy Toolkit has everything you need to take it at your own pace. So the next steps are to visit the ILA website for resources, make an advocacy plan for yourself and your library, collect library success stories, build your network, and reach out to your elected officials and legislators to schedule a meeting at their office, your library, or another event. And once you've done that, don't forget to share information and a photo from your meeting on the ILA follow-up form. So how can you get involved? Give a presentation about advocacy for your library or another library. Give a presentation to a local organization about all that libraries do for their communities. Consider joining a committee or forum of the Illinois Library Association. And help ILA reach the goal of providing every Illinois library supporter with the techniques and skills they need to be powerful library advocates. Thank you all so much. It's now time for questions and answers. Please put your questions in the chat and Cindy Robinson, Executive Director of ILA, will read them.
Hi, everybody. We have a question to start with. Jill asked, can you discuss further what types of databases will be covered regarding statewide database coverage? Just research databases? Would it include ebook, e-audio? I know several medium and small libraries are very concerned about this and how it affects their bottom line negatively. This seems to be of particular concern to downstate libraries, but I have not seen much attention given to these concerns by ILA. I'd love to see a conversation with ILA and these stressed libraries on this topic. Thank you for sharing this, Jill. No one has reached out to us on this concern. We have a very thorough proposal that I can make available on the website. And right now we're kind of in a weird situation because we have a new Secretary of State this year. He's the new kid on the block. And so all the other departments had their budgets set up and ready to go. But Secretary Giannoulias has until March to submit his budget. So when we have that, we will know if the databases have been included in the budget or not. And the proposal that we have given to the Secretary outlines the process. And I can't remember the details off the top of my head. So I will put it on the website under the advocacy menu. so that you can take a look at that yourself. And if you'd like to follow up with me, just feel free to email me, robinson@ila.org, and we can discuss it. I hope that sort of answered it a little bit. We're just in a position. Yes, Becky Spradford has noted that Rails has the information. That's the proposal that I'm going to be sharing. So that will be out there for everyone to look at. Okay, let me scroll down. Thank you, Ryan, for some reference work there. Diane says, be sure that e-textbooks are available to students during finals. The subscription ended in the past during finals from some texts and students could not review for exams. Ooh.
That was a vendor, and it wasn't Elsevier, but it was somebody like Elsevier. Yeah, that was a huge deal, and there was severe backlash, and I know they restored those, but it's temporary. So yeah, those things that appear to be cost neutral aren't always cost neutral. So that is a really good point and a point well taken. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Heather. Jennifer has a question about hosting the President's Day legislative breakfast again. Jennifer, that's a decision that the Advocacy Committee will be making. You do note that it takes a lot of effort, and it does take a lot of effort for the Advocacy Committee and the ILA staff. So we understand what you're going through, because we've done that 8 times every year for about 12 years. So the committee will make that decision for next year, and we'll see where we go from there. Are there any other questions? All right, well, if we have no questions, I think we will wrap up. We will look forward to seeing many of you on Monday when we have our new legislators joining us. Tina is working hard to get them to commit to attend with us, and we'll have a list. If it's not up already, it'll be up soon with all of the legislators that will be there. So we are looking forward to that. Thank you, everybody. And oh, Heather.
Sorry, I just saw somebody in the chat asking if this training will be available, and yes, at that link on the library website, and I believe, I'm sure this is going to go out to all participants as a recording. Yes. So yeah, it's a lot to go through in an hour, so you take the time to take it apart and really dig in.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.